Kravitz. If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Good evening and welcome to episode 321 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I am your proud host, Howard Kravitz. You're looking in the background, you're wondering, where's his normal background? I am in South Florida. The Eagle has landed. We are filming here live from my hotel room. I'm very excited to talk about the unbelievable late pick five sequence this Saturday at Gulfstream Park. It's Pegasus Preview Day, and wow, is this sequence going to be unbelievable? Three stake races and a handicap race. It is filled with many very good horses. I'm very excited to talk with you about it here live. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button right there on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. After you do that, hit the notification bell so that you know when new content will arise, and smash, and I mean smash, that like button. It's below the bottom of the screen. It's that thumbs up button. You can follow me on X right there. It is right there at H Kravitz, and scrolling at the bottom of the screen, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com is my email. Of course, you can listen to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We've got Power Picks. Look below the video player for information about our Power Picks tip sheet. This is the last week you can subscribe for a yearly subscription, which is 1 full month free of Power Picks plus Kentucky Derby information and other things. We also have a fantastic website, hhhracingpodcast.com, and also follow us on Insta, as the kids like to say, Instagram.com/HHH Racing Podcast. All right, we've got a big crew tonight. Please make sure you comment in the chat. We're going to have a live chat. And just to let you know very quickly before I bring on my co-host here, because I'm working only off my laptop and I'm a little bit shorthanded with my technology, one of our the co-hosts tonight, host of Ben Boozin, Kyle Roscoe, is going to be helping out with clicking some of the buttons in the background to make sure this podcast runs as smoothly as possible. We'd love to hear your comments in the chat, like, for example, from Katie and from Sean Kane and from many other people that are going to be joining. Get your paper and pencils out ready, because this is going to be a very difficult sequence. Let me bring on my fantastic crew that we have tonight. First of all, a co-host tonight, but the host of Bet and Boozin', Mr. Kyle Roscoe, from the Saratoga Special and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and my proud co-host on the flagship show, Mr. Paul Halloran. We also have co-host and covering his favorite track in the world, co-host of Bet and Boozin', Charlie Freeman, making an appearance. And guys, very proud to have on tonight. He's been on the show before. He does yeoman's work at Gulfstream Park as their on-air analyst, simulcast handicapper. I consider him a friend of mine. He does a great job. Let's bring him on to help us with Gulfstream Park this Saturday, Mr. Brian Nadeau. Guys, how are we doing tonight? We've got a great sequence to cover.
Hey, guys. It's a pleasure to be on again. Howard, good to see you down here. You brought some cold weather from Chicago with you, but it was good to see you in person. You did some yeoman's work coming to the track today, because I certainly wouldn't. It was not a good day. But with all that being said, I think the weather is behind us. We're not going to be on the turf tomorrow, but I think that's a precursor to keep everything copacetic on Saturday. And like you said, and everybody out there knows, monster day at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. Pegasus Preview Day, essentially.
Yeah, and when in Rome, Brian, what else am I going to do? I mean, come on, I got to go to the track. And I want to say the first thing I want to say before we get into a handicapping, and Brian, you know this, but I want everyone to know out there that I very much we all appreciate Brian's hospitality. He took care of me this week at the track. So, Brian, you didn't have to do what you did, but that just shows the kind of person you are and what kind of place Gulfstream Park is. So you set myself and another friend coming at actually to meet Charlie Freeman there on the bottom right side of the screen. We're very excited. So thank you for the setup that we have this weekend.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you down here, Howard. It's always good to see you in South Florida. And, these are the type of days that bring out a lot of people, and Saturday should be, right at the top of the list.
Yeah, and like you said, we got a decent amount of rain this morning, Brian. They probably, like you said, will be off the turf tomorrow, but they'll be on the turf on Saturday. And look who's joined the chat, I believe. Look who's here. Joe Krustafak. Joe, what's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for joining the show, Joe. We'd love to hear your comments. So Joe Krustafak from Churchill Downs. Brian, you bring on all the big hitters, Brian. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So,
Joe won't return my phone calls, but he can join the chat. So that's pretty good.
all right. Kyle, appreciate you helping out behind the scenes. Guys, just let's get right to it because we got 5 races to talk about, and there's 5 of us on the screen, obviously. So I'm gonna take the banner off the screen, Kyle, and then the rest of it's all you, Kyle. All right. So the first race we're going to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, of course, starts the Pick 5 Saturday. It starts with a turf sprint, race 7, about 3:03 Eastern time. They're going 5 furlongs. It's an optional claiming 25 N1X. You see the field there on the screen. It's a field of 8. The Moorline favorite and a pretty heavy one is the number 4 Cruisin' Man, Florida bred, ridden by Ortiz. He's very fast, Brian. Kyle, go ahead and show the banners there on the screen so we see what we've got there. And Brian is going to go first. Brian is going to go 6-4-3. So, Brian, you're going to go with the 6 horse, who is a horse that Kyle and I are very much interested in. I'll let Kyle talk about why in a bit. But you're going with Richie, a very honest horse, Brian.
Yeah, Richie's okay. I mean, Jimmy Golick does a good job here in turf sprints and in general. And, Richie hasn't been out since July. So, he theoretically could need this race. Cruisin' Man ran absolutely huge last time. He just did everything but win. He ran his eyeballs out in that race. Now he's going to be the speed in here. He's the horse to catch, to beat, all that stuff. But Richie's not going to let him get too far away, and he's been working good for this. Jimmy's, it's not a big sample, but he can get a horse ready. And I just feel like Richie's fired fresh before. You can see it in March. Off an August to March layoff. And, Jimmy Golick's not a guy that's, going to give a horse a tightener. We got a roll here at the championship meet, and it'll be a better price than Cruisin' Man. And you might be able, if you really want to be hard-headed, you might be able to get through this race with just those 2, because Cruisin' Man's supposed to win, and Richie's going to be close. The 3, when I get to heaven, he did have a trip last time behind Cruisin' Man, but, I probably don't need to tell you, Howard, or the guys or your guests, you're not going to win a lot of turf sprints at Gulfstream Park trying to loop fields from the back, and that's the problem with when I get to heaven.
Yeah, I think the turf is probably going to be listed maybe good.
It's going to have some give in it. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but that might help closers a tad. I mean, it's not going to be – it really has not been a highway this meet because it's nice and lush, but definitely true. Kyle, very quickly, tell Brian my connection, your connection, at least – well, your connection more to Richie than me, actually.
Yeah, I've been around longer. Crownsway Racing, the owners of Richie – long-time Chicago guys for me and that, paid homage to me and Howard, but we actually own horses with Crownsway. I actually own every single horse with Crownsway, but Richie. So, which of course, but as you mentioned, he's fired off the bench before, and this reminds me pretty significantly of that start. He's coming off of a long layoff since Gulfstream, but that was an even longer layoff. But at Nelson Jones, it's a really deep track. So running those 49 3s is actually a very, very good time. And talking to the owner, Tony Rollo, that a lot of the podcast family knows really well. He's working lights out, and they should have him ready for this race. He'll be right next to Cruisin' Man, the 4. And realistically, I agree with you. Just kind of one way around the track, 4-6. And I think
Brian, this will make you feel good. I talked to Tony Rollo again, the president of Crownsway Racing, said he is training great, Richie, and they're very excited for the race. So we like that pick. We think he's got a shot. Paul's going to go with Cruisin' Man. Paul, I mean, this horse is very fast. I thought he ran huge last time, even though he lost. I mean, he got pressured all the way in ridiculous fractions. If he breaks, this is clearly the horse to beat.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. He did everything but win last time, and just looking at this race on paper, it doesn't look like they're going to go 20-4, which is kind of, even for a turf sprint, that's seems to be a little aggressive outside of California. I just thought he was the speed of the speed. I can see Richie. I don't have Richie in my top 3, but Richie is going to be a solid B on my ABC play. Yeah, I just think this horse has really put it together his last 3 starts with 3 consecutive mid-80 buyers. And, Richie can get to that. It seems like every other race he's there. I certainly can get to that, but I just thought that the 4 had a somewhat of a decided pace advantage and kind of looking for him to go all the way.
Yeah, it really doesn't look like a ton of speed. Charlie, you've got 4, 6 also, so you think it's pretty much too deep. And Kyle, I sent you a text, by the way. Go ahead, Charlie.
Good.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. Honestly, I kind of just assumed that the 6 Richie would be sitting, right behind the 4. And it's going to come down to kind of, does Cruising Man kind of overwork himself and allow the easy trip for Richie to then go by, which I'm guessing obviously is the angle Kyle would be hoping for, or can Cruising take him all the way? And, I do think the jockeys make it more interesting. I've touched on betting and boozing all the time, how Luis Saez is so good at placing his horses and getting them right up on the lead when they need to be to stay within touch so Cruising Men can't wire them. But ultimately, as Paul touched on, I love the form. I love the consistency. And I think Irad can have this horse in what should be a lighter pace than last time, which was red hot, and should be able to wire this field. But I do think it's those 2.
Brian, I'll ask you one quick question and we'll move on to the big races. A bunch of us have the 8 Famous Gent. What were your thoughts on Famous Gent? 6-1. Did get a very good trip last time on the Tapeta. Second off the layoff. I think he's going to need a pace meltdown, but I think Jose will try to get him up closer if possible.
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. He's second tier. You guys talked about the A, Bs, and Cs. I mean, he's a B. He would be a surprise. He does have a couple wins on the turf course at Gulfstream Park, but you can kind of just see it on his form. He's just a little bit of a cut below. He's going to need some help. He would need a hellacious duel between Cruising Man and Richie to get there. And honestly, I think that would probably put When I Get to Heaven more in the fray than a Famous Gent. To me, he was a comfortable kind of 4th on my order.
Kyle, any quick thoughts from you, and then we'll move on.
No, I don't disagree with anything he said. I agree with Famous Gent, kind of looking for that. If the pace melts down, if anyone's coming back, it's probably either the 3 or the 8. The 3 also kind of just looks like, they kind of cut below these 2 horses. So almost looking for a ring around the track, but pace meltdown, I'd probably, you can aim either way because the 3 and the 8 will be paid much right together. So,
Brian, I actually think the 3's gonna get overbet. I mean, he had a little trouble last time. He was never getting there, Brian. I mean, ever. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next race, guys, because here's where the stake races start. And Brian, we've handicapped what's our 321st show. So in theory, we probably handicapped. Oh, I'd say we've had shows that are not handicapping shows, probably 300 sequences. The last 4 races on Saturday Gulfstream, literally, I think are in the top 10 of difficulty in a good way because there's just no standouts and a lot of horses that seem to be somewhat equal to me, at least. We'll see what everyone else says. So I'm very excited to talk about it. Let's go to the Swany River. It's on the screen right there. The Swany River is a grade 3, a mile on the turf for 3-year-old girls, 150K in the kitty. You see our picks on the bottom of the screen. And Brian's going to go a little bit different from everyone else, actually quite different. Brian is going to go with the number 7, a Willakea, 6-1 for Graham Motion, who I said hello to in the pack today, by the way, and JV. What do you like about this horse, Brian?
Well, she had a real trip last time, Howard, at Aqueduct. Was she going to win? I don't know about that, but she would have been right there. You said Graham won the finale today. It blew up the board. And
what a 7 horse, by the way.
Yeah, she's a little slow on figures, but there's no one here she's supposed to be scared of. I think she's coming into this the right way. She's got a lot of upside. Graham's not a guy that's going to run horses where they don't belong. And I kind of feel like she's going the right way, and she's still got upside. And I don't really see any upside in anyone else in this field. We kind of know what everyone else is going to do. Saffron Moon's going to run her 5 and her 87 buyer. Maybe it'll win, but maybe it won't. Fastest Flight for Brian Lynch is good too. And, I think that Full Count Felicia is probably the horse to beat, even though I didn't make her favorite on the morning line, but I think she's probably the horse to beat. But all of them, and I have respect for all of them, but they're going to be half the price of Wallachia, and I think that's a good time to jump in. And I think those are the 4 in here, and I wanted to spread a little bit.
I think Wallachia might be an overlay, Brian. I think you might get close to 10 on this horse. It'll be interesting to see how they're going to bet it.
Yeah, they're going to, Howard, they're going to probably – I made Fastest Flight the favorite because I keep just betting with both hands on the Brian Lynch horses. Saffron Moon, I get that she takes a lot of money, but she's never done anything. I mean, what's her claim to fame? She's won a couple allowance races. Good for her. Full Count Felicia is dangerous, and she really should be favored. Maybe she will be because of IRAD. But they, the way they've been betting the Brian Lynch horses. But those are to 2 horses to me. I'm kind of a fade Saffron Moon in here. I've got her in 4th, and she's like a fringe A, and you'll see my ticket later. She's on there, but if you told me you could only use 3, she would be the one I would fade.
And you've got Fastest Flight, the Moorline favorite, the 9 at 5-2 in second, Brian.
Yeah, I've got her in second because she got her tightener out of the way, Howard, and I guess I've missed on a few Brian Lynch horses on the morning line. Like F5 was 8-5 in the Jerkins, and he had he was 4-1. I think I made him 5-1, and I still don't know why he was 8-5, and he won. And my point is, they just keep betting Brian's horses, and he's been so live. And Fastest Flight has had success at Gulfstream Park. She's a stakes winner at Ellis, and now she's second off the layoff. So I think she's really ready to roll.
Let's talk about the 4 who you have in third, Brian, with some other co-hosts here. Paul, you've got the 4. Kyle, you've got the 4. Kind of let you go first. Full Count Felicia, who Brian already mentioned, she's been quite the traveler. She was at Santa Anita on Breeders' Cup weekend in a tough goal to COVID. She's got numbers that fit. This is going to be your first time at Gulfstream, though, interesting enough, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, the East Coast specialist, Brittany Russell herself, winning races like lights out at places like Laurel, Pimlico, and Colonial, but never really has made the trip down here. See, she's 0-4 so far this meet, but these I'm keying in on that allowance at Laurel and that stake at Pimlico. That stake at Pimlico, just absolutely just no holds barred ride by Sheldon Russell. Just go and catch me, and no one ever came close. But that race at Laurel back in late 2022 showed this horse has showed that she can rate as well, which is something that I'm really trying to key in on. Last time out in the Goldakova, a little bit shorter than she would like at a mile, I think. But I mean, when you're facing horses like Closing Remarks, Queen Goddess, and Hamwood Fly, and you're dropping back down to this type of company, I just feel like this fits her a lot more. And the fact that she's going to get a really nice trip from the inside, a really nice stalking trip from the inside, that's kind of where I'm. Paul, I don't know where you were going, but I think that's kind of my thing with Full Count Felicia.
Well, I have a question for the group because I'm here to make you think. And I'm a huge Brittany Russell fan, by the way. Brittany is 2 races ahead of Jamie Ness, seeking to become the first woman ever to be the leading trainer by wins in Maryland for a calendar year, which, as you know, runs out on Sunday, Howard. The year ends on December 31st this year.
Thank you, sir.
If Brittany were put on the truth serum, and I'm a big fan of Sheldon Russell, but if you said, Brittany, is this a jockey upgrade? What would she have to say?
Well, I mean, it's IRAD. I mean, obviously.
It's her husband and the father of her children.
Yeah.
It's a good question, isn't it?
Well,
it has nothing to do with handicapping, but I thought I'd bring that up.
Brian, you want to take on that controversial question?
Well, the only thing I'll say is IRAD loses 76% of the time, and he can't bench press 1,200 pounds. So as great as he is, he's not gonna drag a horse home that's not good enough. But this horse is clearly good enough. I couldn't agree more. She's
Howard, you touched on it, Howard. That was a very aggressive placing last time, sending the horse. Yeah. Of course, Al Gold's not afraid to run them, and he's not afraid to pay for the shipping. But that was a pretty aggressive placing and not a bad race. The Closing Remarks is a pretty good horse. The horse obviously came back okay because, no huge gap in the works, no layoff. beyond what's, I guess, going into this race. It'll be about 6 weeks. So, yeah, I think, as Brian said, I think this is the horse to beat. If she shows up and runs her race, I think she's going to take some beating.
Charlie, let's talk about Saffron Moon. You and I have this horse on top. 7-2. I totally understand what Brian is saying. This might be a bad pick on our parts, but what do you like about Saffron Moon? And then I'll comment, Charlie, and we'll go on to the next race.
Yeah, I mean, again, for those who watching from Ben and Booze and know I love my guy Tyler Gaffleone, but honestly, with Saffron Moon, I also talk about this a lot on our show. I love consistency, and so for me to just see those high 80s, kind of like Brian touched on, Saffron Moon certainly could just put up one of those high 80s, and it could be good enough to win. And for me, I'm willing to take that chance. I don't know about you, Howard, but I just like the potential trip for Saffron Moon. I like the versatility, and I like the ability that this horse has shown time and time again. She kind of just likes to sit right behind those leaders, couple lengths off the lead. And, as someone who from my Arlington days loves closers, I understand at Gulfstream they don't hit as often as they do at Arlington, those closers. So you're much better off if you don't want to go with speed to look for those more stalking, pressing type of trips. And I think Tyler, you can see, I know last time out, it was kind of a hot pace. Closer came out of nowhere from last in that race and just destroyed everyone. So I think with, a little more reasonable of a pace here, I think Saffron Moon can sit that nice stalking trip and can go by kind of like what you saw two back at Keeneland with Pratt. And I wonder if that's kind of what you felt. But for me, I think a trip more like that is very realistic in this race. And I think if Saffron Moon can get a trip like that, I think she certainly can win here.
Yeah, Brian, my thought is the 1.8 was just too far. And I think Saffron Moon's really going to appreciate the cut back. And I agree with you, Charlie. I just see Tyler having the sort on the rail and then, turning for home, just trying to find a gap. And I think a 1.8 is too far, Brian. But I mean, if this horse was 6-1 morning line, would you like the horse, or you just don't like the horse in general, Brian?
I just kind of feel like she's a little dressed up,
Okay.
Howard. I know the horse that won the Cardinal was just a freakish performance. I think it was first time Euro, if I remember correctly. And other than that was her first ever stakes race, and she certainly didn't go out of her way to flatter herself. I think she's just been beaten up. I know she beat my horse, but again, my horse is probably going to be 2 to 3 times the price. And I also kind of think that she's got more upside. Like I said, if I'm playing a serious ticket, I think you can't let Saffron Moon beat her. We have to mention too, guys, and certainly Chad Brown hasn't run a horse like Saffron Moon at the meet, but none of his horses have run either. So, just kind of a food for thought. The wild card in here, and I'm not going to tell you she can win the race, but if Saffy runs Accomplished Girl, because she is cross-entered on Sunday and probably theoretically a better spot for her in a sprint, she is freakishly fast, and she will put everybody in a weird, difficult spot because she'll be
on notice early.
She'll be as far in front as Edgar Zayas wants her to be, and then who knows, all hell could break loose. Again, if she runs.
Last thing, guys, don't sleep on Poca Mucha, the number 2, who I have in second. And Brian, if Accomplished Girl's in the race, I bet you can really upgrade the 2, because according to the time form pace ratings, the 2 is actually the best closer in the race. And I do see a decent amount of speed in this race. So I wouldn't sleep on the 2 either with Paco. For Mott, who spots his horses very well and picks this spot, Brian, I think the 2 is a bit interesting to me, sort of like the way the 7 is interesting to you, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Paco's riding lights out. It's cool to see. He is really, really firing at the championship meet. And, again, she's like one of those horses that, she's got to step up a little bit and prove it. But here's Bill Mott and going out and having Paco ride, who's a really, strong finishing rider.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to the next race. The rail horse, I know, is a horse. Well, Kyle doesn't care about the horse, but I do, because it's one of the best names ever, being a Chicago Cubs fan that I am, Brian. The next race is a handicap race, actually, $100,000. I mean, it's basically a stake race. It's on the Tapeta, planned for the Tapeta. They're going 1 mile and 70 yards. This is a very good and deep field of 12 you see on the screen, with the morning line favorite, and a very soft one is the number 6, Skyro, for Lynch and Bravo. And Skyro won last time. There's our picks on the bottom of the screen. I thought this was a very, very difficult race. And Brian, with his northeastern roots, of course, is going with Saratoga Flash 8-1. Brian, you got a nice price on this one.
Yeah, this is I said last time the race Skyro 1 was the best Tapeta race we've ever run at Gulfstream Park, and this one is like way better. This is an awesome race. It is a stakes race, like you said, for all intents and purposes. You see this a lot on the Tapeta, guys. Everybody is within a length or two of each other. On paper, such a problematic race. You could probably come up with literally 9 or 10 different winners. Skyro is the horse to beat. He's the best horse, but Saratoga Flash has only run on the Tapeta one time, and it was a win. It's not going to win today's race, but I also think he's probably a better horse now than he was then. You mentioned the price. He's 8s in here. Comes in off a breakthrough win at Kentucky Downs. And I know that's a funky course and you handle it or you don't handle it. It was a really, really fast race. And I'm just going to take a little bit of a shot in here because it's a deep, full field. And have traffic issues and all that kind of thing. And as good as Skyro is, maybe he comes back a little bit off a really, really hard, fast race, and I'll take a shot. I'm certainly spreading in here. I want to get to it live as many as I can in this spot, because it wouldn't shock me if we have 5 different picks here from everybody.
Kyle, can we go to the Skyro PPs and show the last replay from about the far turn on? Brian, I agree with Skyro not winning this race. I know you have him in second. He's an honest horse, but boy, did he get a setup last time in behind some speed. Skyro's going to be, I think he's the 5 horse here. And right there is fine. There's 2 horses dueling. He just angled out. I mean, he ran well, Brian, but I can't see him getting a better trip than he got last time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really fair, Howard. He certainly got the run of the race. Now, to his credit, he got that run because he could be there. They flew early last time. Volcanic was my best bet of the day. He's back in here, and he just didn't fire. He went too quick early. I don't want to pick Armstrong apart because he entered this race 4 for 4, but he had never run against older horses on the Tapeta. All 4 of his Tapeta wins were against 3-year-olds, and so Skyro held him at bay pretty easily. To be fair, it's just, you said it perfectly. Is he going to get a better trip in this spot? It's unlikely, and boy, did he have to run hard to get that trip. So just maybe he comes back a little bit, and if that's the case, then then it's anybody in here, because as I said, they really are all within a length or 2 of each other.
And Armstrong, everyone did not, for people listening and watching, did not come back and run very well in the turf race, but maybe you can excuse that. That was a very difficult field. Brian's got Conglomerate in third, who's an honest horse coming from Woodbine, who's going to be closing. Paul, let's go to you next. You've got the 5. You got, I believe it's pronounced Buoys, who is 9-2 morning line. And a guy named Michael Maker takes over the training. Now, he takes over for Brendan Walsh, who's one hell of a horseman. But this is a very interesting trainer change. And Kyle and I were talking before the show. I'm fascinated that they decided to take this horse to the Tapeta. So maybe they've seen something in the morning, and for the reason they want to go that route.
Yeah, it's interesting. Came to the U.S. It started with Chad down at Gulfstream and had one good race and one not so good, and then went to Brendan Walsh's barn. And yeah, you could take that 2 different ways. I'm a big Ocean Murphy fan, and I do pay attention to jockeys, so that is part of my thinking here. But the horse with Walsh's last 3, all on turf, granted, but on 3 very different turf courses, a yielding Saratoga, the hills of Kentucky Downs, and the normal Keeneland course. And I love Kentucky Downs, by the way. I say that with great affection. I bet it with both hands and one foot. But I am obviously any turf horse going to Maker, and I know this is synthetic, but there's no reason to think the horse can't run on it. I like Ocean Murphy. I didn't have the morning line when I did it, but I think 92 is a fair price. And this gelding is a straight A for me.
Paul, by the way, I love the Christmas lights. How long are those going to stay up?
Hopefully, I thought they'd be gone by now, but people in my house are a little more festive than me.
Okay, that's hard to imagine. By the way, it's people are more festive
No, it's
than you.
not.
I know. Kyle, before we talk, before Charlie and I talk, and Charlie talks about, I think, his favorite horse in training. I don't want to give you short shrift, Kyle. Although we did talk about the 3 horses already that you have 1, 2, 3. Anything you want to add before we go to Charlie?
I mean, Brian's very astute. Brian took all the words I wanted to say out of my mouth. The only thing why I don't have buoys higher, I just don't like horses coming from this far back on the Tapeta right now. As Brian said, they're all within that type of first flight race, which is why I think Skyro might actually get that same type of trip, although he will have to come back, like you said, off a hard fought effort. That's also why I like Saratoga Flash a lot. So again, Brian took all the words out of my mouth, and as a great guest should, that's how it should be. All
right. Charlie, are you ready? I know Charlie's been waiting all week for this very moment. And Brian, I'll tell you why. Charlie will explain why he likes this horse. And Charlie, I'm not trying to kiss up to you. I really like this horse a lot on Saturday, but I'm going to let you talk about me and Mr. C.
Yeah, my favorite horse other than Mage that I've ever gotten to watch, and the fact that I'm finally going to get to see me and Mr. C in person is honestly an honor, and I couldn't be more excited. So for those of you who haven't watched Ben and Booze, and the backstory is when we were covering Horseshoe in Indianapolis, the horse was 10-1, and I gave out the horse to win. Actually got to put my money where my mouth was and bet the horse as well, and helped one of our co-hosts win a pick 5 with that horse as well. But yeah, me and Mr. C, I love my closers. Ran 2 really nice wins at long shot prices, and then honestly still ran a very respectable effort in that 7th place with the 93 figure. And then returns to Gulfstream, and it was a brutal performance. For me, I draw a line through that race. Obviously, it was just not what you wanted to see. I didn't like the trip at all. The pace was obviously very hot, and for some reason, I know it was pointed out during the live race as well that me and Mr. C was a lot more forward than usual. You see, was 7th by just 3 lengths, 7th by 5 lengths. That's not where me and Mr. C likes to be at all. This horse likes to be way back, likes to come from the clouds. That's why I love this horse and make that strong kick. And I think the problem was the reason the horse didn't fire is that's just not where Zayas should have had the horse. And I know for people who, again, if you're more into Gulfstream, Edgar Zayas does a great job there. It's his track that he's strong at, so it's no sort of shade to him. I just think me and Mr. C needs to go back to those usual trips, and I think can rebound from that performance. And also, I know as you and I talked about Howard over dinner earlier today, the fact that me and Mr. C is picking up Irad Ortiz is a big green flag for me because he clearly sees the same thing and believes this horse can be live again. I think there is enough speed in this race, and if me and Mr. C goes back to those trips of the past, I think can come from the clouds and win this race, and we've seen it done before at longer prices than this.
Yeah, I agree with everything. Maker's got 3 in this race, guys, right? And he's got Irad on this one. I mean, it's not like the other jocks he has are not good, but I just think there's a lot of speed in this race, and I think this is going to be a closer is going to win. I understand that might go against the flow that you talked about, Kyle, normally on the Tapeta. But Kyle, can you really quickly scroll down from top to bottom of all the horses? I want to talk about the pace situation real quickly. Fly the W is not fast, but will show some speed. Saratoga Flash is definitely going. I think we'd all agree. What is Country Final going to do now, or County Final? The 4 County Final is definitely going, right? Skyro's not slow. Tiberius Mercurius, the 7, wants to be up close. You mentioned Volcanic, Brian. What is this horse going to do? He's got to be up close, right? I mean, you would think.
Yeah, he's
and then
going to go.
Like Dreams of Tomorrow is not really a speed horse, but the 11 has got the 11 hole. He's got to be used a little bit. So I think there's a lot of speed in this race. I think me and Mr. C is an honest closer. And the big thing here, guys, is I don't understand, with all due respect, what Zayas was doing last time. I agree, Charlie. He was like 4 wide, used up earlier, Brian, than he normally does. If Irad just lets the speed go and takes back and makes one big run, I don't see why this horse doesn't have a big shot. Brian, are you going to have me and Mr. C anywhere on your ticket?
Well, yeah, it's a spread race. You guys are more forgiving than I am. I don't disagree with anything anybody has said, but I mean, geez, could you run a little bit last time? He didn't do any of that. He didn't pick his feet up at all. So I'm not as forgiving. His last. Okay. I know he's 2 for 4. When he won the Soldier's Dancer, those are state breds. There's nothing like state breds in here. But yeah, I think you have to use them. Unfortunately, for you guys that like them, we have a tongue-in-cheek saying around here, but Samantha and I, but it's actually the truth. You got to pay a tax when Irad rides your horse.
Yeah.
And maybe he's going to be lower than 8-1. And that's, I think, that's unfortunate, as well. And, this is the big leagues now, and they're not Florida breds. probably should have run better last time, and I get what you're saying, and he will. The good thing for him is he's going to probably be forced to settle today, because I would think you're right. He probably gets run off his feet a little bit, and then we'll see.
It's a great race, Brian. We got a horse like Public Sector, the 12, who used to be trained by Chad and now is trained by Safi, which in general I think is a downgrade, but Safi is so good down, here in Florida. This horse is 15-1 more line, Brian. I mean, this is just a really tough race.
Yeah, it's a guessing game, right? He's one of those horses there's a few of them in here that have never run on Tapeta before, and he's in the parking lot, and you just have no idea what you're going to get. And, Safi certainly throws him in the deep end of the pool. And, Safi doesn't win 25% of his races by putting horses in bad spots. So, this is that type of race. Look at Fly the W. You guys kind of mentioned him a little bit. We should talk about him. Bobby T's done a hell of a job with this horse. He's 11 for 22 on the Tapeta, and he's 12-1. I wanted to make him 15, to be honest with you. He was never, ever, you want to show a replay, watch his last race. He was never going to win the last race, but what does he want to do? He wants to beat you, and he gutted it out. It's a really cool race.
He's a really, really cool horse. This is just a whole other level, though, that he's facing. Yeah, all right, guys, 100%. Let's go on the last. Yeah, let's go on the last two races, because these last two races, oh boy, wow, are they challenging? Race 10 is a grade 3. We're showing the entries coming up right now. It's a grade 3. It's the Harlan's Holiday, $150,000. They're going a mile a 16th, which is 2 turns, but it's also a very short run to the first turn. Keep that in mind. Also, as you see on the screen, the Moyline favorite is the number 6, O'Connor, who Paul and Pete make fun of me because, I love the horse earlier in the year, and then he had a flat spot, but now he's come back and run well. The 5 Signator, everyone, will be a scratch. Ladies and gentlemen, the 5 Signator will be scratched out of this race and is running the Queens County, I believe, in New York. So you can scratch the 5 Signator, who actually I like quite a bit if he was in this spot. Picks are on the bottom of the screen. We're going to go to Brian first. Brian, what is it with this East Coast bias? You like Saratoga Flats.
Look at
that. Now you got New York traffic. I'm just kidding. These are really good animals. New York traffic stretching back out now for Safi.
Yeah, if you didn't mention that, I probably would have never even picked up on that. Very important here, guys. You know this, but it's a mile and a 16th, and this is a short finish line. Okay, this carries horses home, speed horses home. Promises fulfilled, won the Fountain of Youth. I mean, he couldn't get 2 turns in a van properly. So this carries horses home. What a race. It's impossible. It's probably, for me at least, the deepest spread on the card. But I'm pretty confident. Maybe the only thing I know about this race is that New York traffic will be in front. I don't see a lot of speed in here. Octane will go a little bit from the outside, especially getting now back out to 2 turns. New York traffic, you just look at his form. They're all 1-turn sprint races, and he's been chasing pretty quick splits. There's no reason why this horse is not maybe possibly freewheeling on the lead. And, you guys just go back and watch, a 2-turn mile and a 16th race at Gulfstream Park. Go back and watch last year's Fountain of Youth. You wake up off the far turn and the line is right there, and you don't have to run that far, and it can carry horses. Is New York traffic the best horse, 2-turn horse in this race? Absolutely not, but maybe on Saturday he is. The other thing I do want to mention too, and we'll probably, I'm sure we're going to talk about O'Connor and stuff. There's other horses in here that theoretically in the perfect world are trying to get to the Pegasus World Cup. I don't really see that with New York traffic. So he's, to me, Safi's got the screws mighty cranked for Saturday.
He's very interesting. I really don't know what to do with him. You have him higher than I do, but you make some excellent points. And he's also been training down here at Palm Meadows, which I think is a good sign. So Safi's obviously taking him down here, Brian, and working him down here and get reacclimated to the more humid weather down here. So I do like that also for New York traffic. Let's talk about your second choice, Brian. You've got the 6 O'Connor, who showed more tactical speed last time. I was a huge fan of his earlier in the year when he came and won his debut. In October 22, when he just blew away the field in his first North American start. and I actually picked him in the Pegasus, which is the running joke because I thought he was a little bit interesting. But
HHH Racing Podcast legend O'Connor.
he has come back. Listen, Brian, I take shots, man. I'm not afraid to take some shots. He has come back and run well, and he was more tactical last time.
Yeah, I thought he was like the lead pipe cinch of the decade in the last year's Holland's Holiday. You know what surprised me? Because I think now he's got this kind of maybe just mantra where O'Connor needs to run long and he's 2 turns through and through, and he might just be. But the weird thing is, if you look at his 3 2-turn mile and a 16th races at Gulfstream Park, they might be his best 3 races. I mean, the Ghost Sapper last year, Harlan's Holiday was an extremely fast race for the level that his stablemate won. And then you said it, Howard, he was like absolutely the next coming when he won his debut here last year. So I think he's clearly the horse to beat. And I think he's also clearly the best horse. Listen, we could talk about this particular race for an hour, but basically anybody we're going to talk about is trying to get to become a graded stakes horse. We have no worries about that at all with O'Connor.
Did you hear that, Paul? No poo-pooing O'Connor. Brian said he's the best horse in the race.
No, I was going to give you credit because last year on Pegasus Day, they did have a second race, and he did beat the statue of Pegasus in the parking lot. So I got to give you some credit.
Ouch. Wow. All right. Listen, I heard the statue's a little bit slow, so I hope he did beat that horse. You got Steel Sunshine, Paul. You're going with a 15-1 shot, who just seems to be getting better and better for Paco and Bobby DeBona.
Yeah, and again, not having the morning line, I figured it'd be a price. Although I'll be honest with you, I didn't quite think this high. But I think it's a case of if he runs a little better than his best race, and you could argue his last 2 were his best races. If he can just move up just a little, which is not unreasonable still in the 4-year-old year, I think he can be in the mix. And I'm certainly don't like him any less seeing Brian's line of 15-1. That is not going to deter me whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, O'Connor can beat us. He did beat me last time after 7 times in a row of me beating him. So I'll take my chances.
All right. Listen, we hear you. You got WNL from the rail in second for Gargan, who is a horse I know well because when he broke his maiden, he beat a horse that I know very well, that I have partial ownership of. So I know this horse very well. Maybe he just needed the break and needed to mature. He's got the rail. I would think size ascending, Paul, because as Brian astutely mentioned, on paper, there doesn't appear to be a ton of speed. So you got to go from there, don't you?
Yeah, and I have this horse marked as a B, but after listening to Brian, his analysis of the pace flow and what he thinks about New York traffic, I might upgrade him because you hit the nail on the head, Howard. With Louis on him and on the rail, I do think he will definitely be forward. And, it might be the type of race where, he can go by New York traffic in the stretch and hold off everyone else. So I think WNL at a very fair 8-1 also has a puncher's chance here. So I'll be doing some fence swinging here.
All right. Well, very quickly from Kyle and Charlie. Kyle, we'll have you actually, Charlie will have you talk about your top pick. And then Kyle will have you talk about the 9, just to give you a heads up. So Kyle, Charlie, what do you quickly like about Grand Aspen for Pletcher?
Yeah, I was a little surprised, seeing that it was, I know it's not Irad Ortiz, but nonetheless, one of the Ortiz brothers with Pletcher. I would have thought he'd get a little more love than 8-1 and a little more love from my co-host. But for me, again, I like seeing the works have been solid. I like seeing the progress, going from obviously being stuck in the maidens and those low 70s, moving up, just progressing into the 80s. And now with that 94 last time out with Pratt, I just see a horse that's continuing to improve. Again, I also like the versatility. I like the trip that Grand Aspen typically sits. He's usually right behind the speed, just a couple lengths off. And again, in a race where, as you touched on, there isn't much speed, can get a ground-saving trip more towards the inside. I can easily see Grand Aspen sitting right behind the 1 and 2 horse to the inside, just sit a little wide right next to them, and then off that final turn, just go right by them and not have too much work to do and be able to get a great trip. And that's kind of what we saw last time out with this horse, Churchill Downs. I understand that this is a step up in competition, But as we've kind of touched on with other trainers, Pletcher does well. Florida's his state. He knows what he's doing with his horses as well. And again, especially he's got an Ortiz brother up. I don't think he's putting Grant Aspen in the spot if he thinks it's too tough. And even though I do like my closers in O'Connor, I think this is a favorite you can beat. I wanted a price. And I know Gasoline's another interesting Pletcher, but I love the value here with Grant Aspen. I think this is a horse that may get overlooked.
Yeah, maybe he's won in dirt all along. He started on dirt, then they switched him to turf, and now he's been very good back on dirt. So he's dialed in out of a Grand Reward mare. So interesting to see. 8-1 more line. Kyle, you'll talk about Gasoline. I'll talk about my top pick, and then we'll go to the last race. Gasoline's another Pletcher who you'd think will be forward. Just ran a monster race 2 back when it's on a roll, and then sort of got a reality check in the Clark.
Yeah, which, the Clark mile and an eighth might be a little bit too, the last eighth of a mile, but also you're facing horses like that in the Clark. So coming back down to this type of level, I think is what Gasoline wants. But we talked about it so many times already. I mean, the 9-hole on this sort of a run-up is almost, basically the parking lot. So you're going to have to use Gasoline up a little bit here, and you pay the IRAD tax, as Brian said, with a horse like Gasoline. So, but being the 9-hole, I think you might still get, 7-2, 4-1. But I mean, that optional claiming at Churchill was extremely impressive, beating, Giant Game, but then beating War Campaign, who just came back to run an absolute bang-up race in the Tinsel at Oaklawn Park. So Gasoline is definitely one that can be, if you can overcome that 9-hole. Like I said, IRAD might have to use them a little bit, but should, in theory, set a nice spot.
Guys, I didn't know what to do with this race. I'm going with Octane. It might be a horrible pick. I'll just tell you right now, Brian, this might be my worst tip of the day out there. But I don't see a ton of early speed. I know the 1 and 2 are going to show some speed, but I think the 7 is the speed of the speed, especially according to the Timeform US. If Zayas can find a way to at least sit off or clear, why can't this horse win? I mean, maybe he's better going 1 turn, Brian. And I know the last race was a restricted race and it was much easier. I mean, he's off a layoff. He's going to sit a nice trip in theory because he's got a bunch of closers like right to his inside. So he'll just watch what the 1 and 2 do and break. And I think he's going to get a good trip. The distance is more of a concern to me, Brian, with Octane than the actual trip itself. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I mean, Howard, yes, and yes to everything you said, because I think he's potentially 2-path pressing or 2-path spying. And man, he was good last time, and he was amped up and ready to roll. Yeah. And that was the best Octane's probably run in a real race since he was a 2-year-old when he was blitzing through the series down here. One thing I want to mention on basically, there's literally 5 WNLs in here. There's Grant Aspen, the WNL. They're all the same horse. Signator, he said, is coming out. Gasoline. We got to mention the L word, guys, because all these horses, the WNLs, the Grant Aspens, Gasoline, they're Lasix horses. They don't run on Lasix Saturday. I think it's, you don't know. But, they all have big races with Lasix. There's no Lasix on Saturday. That could be a little bit of a wild card. And it's just like you guys talked all about them, and I don't really disagree with any of them. WNL, Grant Aspen, Gasoline, they're all the same kind of horse. They got to prove they can run in this race instead of just beating up on, Signator's another one, beating up on, allowance horses that they're just better than. Yeah,
fair enough. Paul, our astute birthday boy, Pete Visco, likes to talk about that Lasix issue a lot. So that's a very astute point, Brian. It'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, guys, last race. We got about 10 minutes left with Brian, and then everyone stick around because at 9 o'clock when Brian leaves us, the other 4 of us will go through our pick 5s. Guys, the last race, it's not a maiden claimer on the Tapeta going 5.5. This is a great stake. So my hat's off, Brian, to the racing secretary and people down at Gulfstream for having a graded stake as the last race of the day. I love it. It's a grade 2. It's the Fort Lauderdale. It's basically the local prep for the Pegasus Turf Invitational. They're going 1.8 miles on Saturday, $200,000. You see the field of 10. The Moorline favorite is the 9 at 2-1, which absolutely shocked me personally. Running B for Chad and IRAD. You see the picks on the bottom of the screen. And Brian, you already go with Running B, who I was super impressed with last time as he just got pressured a little bit on the lead and still won easily.
Yeah, they'll never catch a horse on Saturday. He's like down the road. He's my best bet of the day. He's a single. Wow. He's an anchor. You said it. I mean, he is absolutely If you guys pull that race up at Aqueduct, man,
Go ahead,
watch him
Kyle.
level
Don't
off
worry.
in the lane, because you're not going to show the whole thing, but watch him level off in the lane. He was nagged the entire way, took pressure the entire way, and he just completely bottomed out the field. It was his first start in almost 13 months. And he is streaking home in this race. You're going to see him in mid-stretch where he finally swats his pace rival, who was absolutely, nowhere, and he just blasts home. He has got more upside than the rest of this field combined. Hopefully, it's a firmer turf course on Saturday. I get that, 9 furlongs. He's already won at 9 furlongs over Keeneland, which is a much more demanding turf course on a speed horse in Gulfstream Park. I just don't see any way this horse gets caught on Saturday. This is a solid race. Don't get me wrong. It's a grade 2 turf race. To me, Howard, this is a horse going serious places.
Brian, I have only one concern, and it involves 2 words, and those 2 words are main event. Isn't that horse going?
I just don't think he's fast enough, Howard.
Okay.
I mean, and if he is,
Yep.
yeah, if he is, Running Bee can, Running Bee is one not setting the pace, but main event has kind of, to me, especially as an older horse, fallen on the lead a little bit. Maybe they get more aggressive. Javier's not a guy that's going to, press the envelope that strongly early. And
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like, Irad is going to take the initiative here. He can't get cute into the turn. It's a relatively quick run. He doesn't want to lose too much ground. If Javier wants to go pedal to the metal, he can sit. But I just kind of feel like naturally he's just faster. I agree.
Charlie,
I don't disagree on paper, at least, but I just kind of feel like they know their plan to win this race.
Charlie, you obviously agree with that. And you've got the New York bred, Jerry the Nipper, in second, who I'm shocked and disappointed that Paul does not have the New York bred on top. Paul, I'm going to revoke your license, by the way, your New York ownership license. But anyway, let's talk about Jerry the Nipper real quickly, Charlie, who is very honest, but I will say this is his first time running at Gulfstream. Actually, this is his first time running out of New York. That's my concern with this horse.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, has ridden with Jose Ortiz a lot, so obviously he knows the horse well. Has been training pretty solidly, trained by Pletcher. For me, this is a horse that I wouldn't really say I've chased, but I've certainly kind of been lucky enough to just get away with repeatedly choosing to kind of play in exactas underneath. Had the horse underneath Spirit of St. Louis, and then also was a horse that I actually, not in a big upset, but had picked over the summer to win at Saratoga. So maybe I'm a little biased that Jerry the Nipper has really treated me well lately. But I love the consistency. I mean, you look in every single race other than one is in the 90s. And for me, I just love that, Jerry the Nipper's going to run his race. He's going to be right in and around, loves to finish in the money. I understand the concern going to Florida for the first time, but I don't think the distance will be a problem. I think, again, consider a really nice trip just behind the speed. I ultimately do think this 9 will also wire the field. I kind of saw this race the same way Brian did. But again, for me, my only kind of angle was I feel like the closers are going to have too much to do. So I feel like your only real hope is maybe a stalker can just get the right trip and, just hope somehow Running Bee has to work a little too hard. So that was really my angle with Jerry the Nipper. I'm assuming anybody else who likes Jerry the Nipper would kind of feel the same way as me. But again, I love the consistency. I think the trip could work out nicely. Don't know if it'll be enough to win, but look, if you're looking for a nice price underneath, I think everyone here would agree getting an 8-1 horse underneath the 9 would certainly be some solid value.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, you and I are interested in the 6. I don't want to talk too much longer here, but if the race falls apart, I've chased this horse so many times. This horse has a wicked close and has run best at Gulfstream. So if they do hook up, I think this is the one you want.
I was very interested on the tactics change last time out. They got the horse in a little bit closer last time out, and with Luis Saez aboard, I don't see that changing necessarily. I love that type of move. And now Shug takes into a pretty aggressive spot off that last one. And you said, you chase this horse all the time. This horse used to come from not the clouds, maybe like the stratosphere last year. But the tactics change I like a lot. And if Luis Saez can continue to be aggressive, I think for Washington, it could bring a decent, at least in the money, at a really nice price.
Paul, the last horse I want to talk about, then we'll show Brian's pick 5 and we'll let you go, Brian. And Brian, again, really appreciate your great analysis. And please check him out on the simulcast feed for Gulfstream because he gives out solid picks every single day. Stone Age, the number 7, Paul, is a horse you have on top. Brian has second, I have third. This was really a tough call for me. I just don't know what to do with him. I think he's going to take a lot of money because you see all these overseas races. But to be honest, what has he really done other than his Breeders' Cup Turf in 22, which frankly, he got a perfect trip and has not come out to be a very good race going forward?
Well, I think Warlike Goddess would argue with that and Rebels Romance. But yeah, I do agree with your I agree with everything you said until that last part of your statement, but you did well for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I'm formerly trained by Aiden, now trained by Chad, a turf horse who's run with better company, who, I don't know, this is the type of horse I'm not supposed to pick, but I pick every time. 7-2, I was pleased. At least I was pleased when I saw him come up at 7-2 because I would have felt worse if he came up at 2-1. So I'll feel better if he loses at 7-2 than I would at 2-1. I know you'd say, you idiot, you lost anyway, but I don't know. Has not won over here in 5 tries. Has run with better fields every single time. I don't know. I'm going to give him. I have two A's and only 2 A's in the race, and it's the 7 and 9. So he's my other A. I agree with Brian on the 9. I like the 9, but again, I would. And I picked the New York Red third, by the way, which is a pretty good in this field. And as far as your 6, Howard, I have 3 words for you: reverse try key.
Okay, I understand. Maybe he's going to fill out the try second or third, but I do like his closing kick, but it's got to set up. Brian, what do you do with Stone Age? I mean, you've got him second. Does he want 1 mile and 1/8? Does he want firmer turf? He's got blinkers on. I have no idea. This horse could run off the screen and win by 4 or finish 7th. I have no idea.
Yeah, he might want $75,000 claimers in 4 weeks from now. I don't know how he could possibly. He's like this distant second for me. I don't know what are they doing at 1 mile and 1/8? This just looks like Chad might be throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks. He's been you kind of hinted at it, Howard. He's been absolutely dreadful in 2 races. He was 2-1, by the way, in the Sword Dancer, and he was 7-1, in the Turf Classic. He could run a little bit, and he hasn't at all. Now the blinkers go on, and Chad's a great horseman, so I don't necessarily think like he's just saying let's just put blinkers and see what happens. So I think there's it's done for a reason. But at 9 furlongs on the Gulfstream Park turf course, I put him in second because I don't see a lot in here, and I do feel like he's got a lot of class, but he's like I said, he's a distant second to me. I like Jerry the Nipper. I'm glad you talked about him. He's a cool horse. He's probably a little outgunned here. He's a cool horse.
Kyle, let's go full screen, take the banners off, and we'll talk about our pick 5s. And guys, I'm going to stay on screen, but just let everyone know live in about 2 minutes, there's a horse running at Turfway Park who in race 7, the 5 horse called Magistrate. Magistrate is the horse that I have the largest piece of, Brian, from an ownership standpoint. So I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to go ahead and we're not going to show the race. But if people have no interest in hearing other people's opinions, you might want to, at least on the side, put on Turfway on your own screen because they're about to go to the gate and cheer my horse on, Magistrate, trying to break his maiden in a maiden special. But Brian, before you let you go, we remiss not to let you talk about your pick 5 ticket. 346 with 1479 with 236 with 12369 with 9 Stoled Cold single on the end running B for $90. Talk about your thought process on this ticket instruction, Brian.
Well, I kind of lucky / fortunate in that I have my heaviest opinion of the day is the last race. A lot of people are going to look at that horse as an allowance horse, and they're going to probably spread deep in the Fort Lauderdale. And I understand it. I get fortunate that I don't have to do that. So if you look at this ticket here, you can kind of tell, Howard, that I'm just really hoping to get alive to running B, and hopefully we can get a price or 2 in there. I'd like to think I'm going to get by the first leg. I mean, barring something crazy, got the 4 gals in the Swany River that make the most sense with a price on top. I'm a little tighter than I want to be in the Tapeta race because that really is a wide open race. But as long as Skyro's in there and I've got my price with Saratoga Flash, and then you can see my Harlan's Holiday, I do not have a strong opinion, and I just want to be alive I respect O'Connor a lot, and he's the horse to beat, but I want to be alive to the up and coming horses, and then New York Traffic, my top pick. So I've got those 3 allowance horses that we talked about, WNL, Grand Aspen, and Gasoline, that are trying to bridge the gap to that race, and they'll all be decent prices. Gasoline. You mentioned the scratch, Howard. Unfortunately, with that horse, coming out, then everybody's going to get knocked down a little bit because they were going to bet that horse a little bit. So for $90, the pool is going to be massive. I want to mention too, it's a mandatory Rainbow 6 on Saturday too. That pool will be massive as well. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, someone hit the mandatory 6 the day before.
I know.
We've seen that. No shocker. Brian, we really appreciate your time, man. As we let you go, any final thoughts for the bettors, viewers, and listeners for Saturday at Gulfstream, or anything else you want to tout at Gulfstream, or your X channel, or your X following, anything else you'd like to talk about?
Well, I mean, I just, Saturday's a huge day, and the pools have been at the championship meet, as they always are, have been astronomical. The early pick 5s getting over $750,000. The Rainbow, they, like you said, Howard, they hit it last week. They still almost bet $1 million fresh new money the next day. So that pool will be massive on Saturday. And the pick 5 we just talked about, boy, you couldn't ask for 4 better stakes races. Knock on wood, and that's probably dangerous to say in South Florida because of the weather, but things are looking pretty darn good, even on Friday into Saturday. So that turf course should be ready to roll, and just really looking forward to it. The other thing, here's one thing I will mention. Just pay attention, everybody, to these races on Saturday, because theoretically you're going to see everybody, the main contenders right back on Pegasus World Cup Day. And so take some notes and, file those kind of things into your handicapping bag, because a lot of the gang, there's going to be a lot of invaders for sure. But a lot of these horses, and if they fire well, they're going to come right back on the 27th of January.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens in a month. Brian, I can't thank you enough, man, for coming on the show and taking care of me this weekend. Look forward to seeing you the next 3 days at Gulfstream Park. Let's get some winners on Saturday, Brian.
Yeah, guys, thanks a lot, Howard. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Brian.
Thanks a lot, man.
Take care, Brian.
Take care,
see you tomorrow, Brian.
All
right, take care. Thanks. All right, as magistrate, oh boy.
He didn't look comfortable at all, man.
We tried to take him off the pace, and he got shuffled back a little bit and made a wide run, but maybe it's just better on turf. He ran a monster race, guys, first time on turf. We're talking about a race that's not a Gulfstream. I'm being selfish for 5 seconds here, but anyway, I think we're probably going to put that straight away and wait for him a turf spring, because he lights out in his first race on turf. Not every horse that likes turf likes synthetic, guys. This is a perfect example of one that I hope at least is that. All right, let's go on to our other pick 5s. Again, we thank Brian Nadeau for coming. Let's show Paul's next. Kyle?
Yep.
Paul's pick 5 is 4-8 with 1-4-7-10, with 1-5-6-8, with 1-5-10, with 7-9, $96, Paul.
Yeah, and as I said, I was thin at the beginning and end. I do think 7 and 9 are pretty solid. Let me say this about Stone Age, Howard, in that last leg. The only thing I will say, and having spent some time around him and the connections at Saratoga, Stone Age is the rare Euro that comes over here looking for firm turf and doesn't want cut in the ground. Now, he might, unfortunately, in South Florida, he might get a surface he doesn't really like, but I was told that flat out by TJ Comerford, who travels with the horse for Aidan O'Brien up in the Sword Dancer, which is why at 2-1 he was, he just wasn't going to happen. So anyway, for whatever it's worth, the firmer the turf, the better for him. But yeah, I'm thin on the beginning and end, and trying to spread and try to get as much coverage as I can in the beloved Tapeta race, right in the middle of the Tapeta, whatever the hell you call it, in the middle of the sequence.
I thought you called it plastic.
Well, yeah, I want to be polite, Right. By the way, I don't mind betting this race in this sequence. I'm okay with that. I just those 5 furlongs where they're either going to go, 3 furlongs and 31 or 41. Those are the ones that trip me up.
Gulfstream Speedway.
I hear you. By the way, Speed of the Horse is in the comment. If I think I know that is Speed of the Horse, give me a call tomorrow. We'll hook up at the track. I know you're going to be there if that is the person that I think it is. Can you show that Maryland's this is a new person, I think. Yeah. Second from the bottom, absolutely. I think, Kyle.
Yep. Marnie
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, she says, hello all here from Phoenix, Arizona, and back home by us, Schaumburg, Illinois. So, Marnie, if you are a new viewer, welcome in. We really appreciate you joining in.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Marnie. We appreciate that. All right, let's go to Charlie, Charlie's talked less on this show than I think any other show, but he's been an excellent co-host, very patient. We appreciate that, Charlie. Just a lot of mouths to feed, so to speak, tonight. Charlie's pick 5, 4 with 1-9, with 2-6-8, with 3-6-9, with 2-3-6-9. And Charlie, I think this is something very important. Before we talk about your construction, you sent the ticket. You could spend up to 100, but you're doing something very smart, and I have a ton of respect. You didn't want to send in a ticket that you wouldn't bet yourself. Usually you don't bet tickets that are, as big as, 75, 80, 90. Much respect. You're going to play a $36 ticket because that's the kind of ticket that you'd be playing for yourself anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously with our show, there's lots of times with me being busy in the college life where I can't actually go to the races or bet those tickets, but I will have the privilege of being able to go to Gulfstream Saturday and bet it. But again, as you touched on, I understand myself, and I know realistically I don't play tickets that are going to be over $50. So I'm not going to give out a $90 ticket where I wouldn't play it myself. I'm on, everybody, I'm sure our viewers can relate. I know it's not maybe as young of the audience as the Bet and Boozing one, but when you're on that college budget, you're not usually spending a $90 ticket. I'm sure Kyle can relate to that all too well.
Don't even get me started.
So that's how I kind of got to my realistic construction, because I am going to play my ticket. So for me, I'm singling the 4 in the first leg. I know this is the least exciting race where it's not the big stakes race, but look, Cruising Man looked incredible last time. It was a ridiculous pace. I don't think this is obviously not that strong of a field. He absolutely can wire this field. The next race with the 1 and the 9, I know you and I, Howard, are high on Saffron Mood, and others might not be, but I believe this horse can get the right trip. But as Brian talked on earlier, Brian Lynch's horses have been great. And I do think Fastest Flight really does do well here at Gulfstream. And I think Luis is the perfect jockey for him. So I wasn't going to single. And then going with my top 3 for the next 2 races. Saratoga Flash, show speed. Brian talked a lot about how talented this horse is. Skyro, obviously, this race could set up nicely again. So I didn't want to leave Skyro off my ticket. And of course, me and Mr. C has to be on the ticket. Then in the race 10, again, going with my top 3 again. I think O'Connor has to be on my ticket, is the best horse in this race, but is beatable. I talked about why I really like Grand Aspen, and I think it's a lot of horse people are overlooking and should really consider using. And then Gasoline, obviously, if Gasoline runs back to that effort, 2 back can certainly win this race. And then the last race, I know Brian loves Running B, and so do I. But for me, honestly, at 2-1, it's a short price, so I can't leave the horse off, and was very impressive. But, this is still, I know it's not a world-beating competition, but there is still competition. I still think it is fairly open. I still think there are a lot of underrated horses, like I touched on with Jerry the Nipper. I was a little surprised we didn't touch on Grand Sonata, but I think that's another really talented horse in this field that has, been able to win before at these kind of prices, so it wouldn't surprise me. And then I'm actually happy you and Kyle talked about Fort Washington, because as you touched on, I love my closers, so I had to throw that horse in there in case there is a pace meltdown. So that's my ticket, very reasonable price.
I think you have very good instruction. I have, as much as I'd like to see Richie win for Crown's Way and Tony Rallo on Saturday, I have no problem from a ticket construction perspective. Someone singling Cruising Man, who, guys, let's be honest, of the 5 races, might be the most likely winner of the sequence. Singling that horse, no problem. And Charlie, as my good friend Paul knows, Paul, if he doesn't have the single in the first leg, what should he do? Play the old pick 4, Charlie. Fire again, baby.
I will.
All right. I'll make sure that happens because I'm going to be there right next to you. So anyway, that'll be a lot of fun. Kyle, let's go ahead and show your you can actually go ahead and say your numbers for your own ticket.
All I know is Brian and I need to go have drinks, or we need to do something together, because I'm pretty dang close to what he's doing. $90 ticket for myself, playing 4-6 in the first leg, 1-4-9 with 2-3-5-6-8 with 2-3-4-7-6-9 and singling Running B on the end. Look, I talked about it in the race. It's Cruising Man or Richie. Realistically, for me, I think it's going to go 1-2 around the track, unless something absolutely ridiculous happens from a front end standpoint, I think it's those two, and you move on. In the Swany River, I mean, Saffron Moon I have in there. I just have the 3 most logicals: Full Count Felicia, the 4, and then Fastest Flight, the 9. Not too much to say there. And then the next 2 are my complete spreads. The Tapeta race, I mean, we talked about it. Like I said, I loved Saratoga Flash as well on the front end, but Bowie, Skyro, a Price, our Conglomerate, who Brian talked about, and then the 8, me and Mr. C, I also have in there in case there is a pace meltdown. The Harlan Holiday, I'm going to be honest, I like you can have 7 different horses win this race out of 11. It's just a completely ridiculous race. It's all going to be trip dependent, at least in my opinion. I have New York Traffic on top as well. Like I said, Brian and I were extremely similar tonight. But Grand Aspen I have in there. Charlie's a top pick. Blue Devil, who we didn't talk about, who I think is an impossible. I have O'Connor in there. I'm dyslexic. Apparently, I put the 6 after the 7 because that's how numbers work. Octane, in case he does get away, and then Gasoline as well, and then Singling Running Bee on the end, who I think just go, never look back.
I like your ticket. I like Running Bee singled on the end from the perspective you got to single somewhere, and so I like taking a stand. Let's go ahead and show my ticket. I'm going 4-6 with 1, 2, 4, 9, with 5, 8. With 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, with 6, 9, $96. First leg, I'm just going to go too deep. I think it's going to be Richie or Cruisin' Man. I think the inside horses are better than Brian believes. I could be wrong. It is a tough race. I'm going 1, 2, 4, 9. Then I'm going 5, 8, and I'm drawing. That's the the Buoys and me and Mr. C, right?
Yep.
Charlie, how about this? At whatever time that race goes off, when me and Mr. C wins at like 7-1, you and I will be in the winner's circle talking to
Absolutely.
Iran.
Absolutely. I will be in that winner's circle. No one will keep me out.
I think I'd make Charlie's year at the track if that actually happened. That'd be some crazy shit, so to speak. I'm going very deep in the Harlan's Holiday. I have no clue, guys. Absolutely no clue about that race. In the last race, I hear what everyone's saying about Running Bee, and I hear what you're saying about Stone Age, Paul. I'm just against Stone Age. I could be very wrong. I'm against him. And I'm not fully convinced Running Bee is going to have the lead. And if there's a closer I want, it's Fort Washington. So I'm going to go with the best closer and the best speed, in my opinion. And look, if I can even get there, I'll be ecstatic because this is a really tough sequence. And as you take my banner off the screen and put the scrolling intro banner, Kyle, up at the end for the viewers so they can check out some information. Guys, I don't know about you. Paul, I'll speak to you directly. I need a win, buddy, on Saturday because Santa Anita Tuesday, I lost every goddamn photo. Like every nose, every photo I lost by like a dirty nose, and I got my ass handed to me on Tuesday. So I need a good day Saturday at Gulfstream.
Yeah, well, the only thing I could say to you, Howard, the one philosophy you have to have in this game is keep swinging.
We shall do. We will be doing that.
I'm with you. I didn't, in the contest, I had a couple of tough ones in the contest myself. The 6 who looked like he was home, and then the 4 who took the lead and then got come back apart. We don't need to relive it, do we? You brought it up though, so
well,
in the Catholic faith, Howard, we call this penance. You're reliving it. You're doing your penance.
No, we don't have to rehash every race. I just want to make a blanket statement.
For some sympathy. I didn't. I didn't go out and buy a new vehicle after Tuesday's card either.
Kyle and Paul, quick final thoughts on Saturday. Anything else, and then Charlie, and then me to wrap up the show.
Just like I said, it's going to be a good card there tomorrow. If you haven't checked out the Betting and Boozing show yet, we covered Santa Anita tomorrow with 2 very good $100,000 stakes on the card. So if you're looking for something to bet tomorrow, we always are. Go check out that show. It's also on the YouTube channel. But it does say I'm soon to join the pack in Florida, but not going to Gulfstream. I'm taking my talents down to Orlando. I'm going to go see the guy that I pay the most money out of anybody in the world. I'm going to go to Emma, and I will be at Disney World for New Year's Eve. So it should be a lot of fun. Say
hi to Mickey and the crew out there. Charlie, final thoughts. You and I, my friend, will be at the track tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday at Gulfstream in the paddock, getting some access, Paul, that Charlie's never had before, so I'm very excited
Good.
to show him around with the media credentials. But final thoughts, Charlie, on Saturday, or final thoughts on maybe the Ohio State University playing tomorrow?
Yeah, big game for the future of our program. Time to see if Devin Brown is for real and Emeka come back. Got a lot of guys supposedly coming back, so I'm looking forward for that. As for horse racing, yeah, very much looking forward to tomorrow and Saturday and all the cool different access and watching just some wonderful races at Gulfstream, which is about time considering when I had to go to the races these past few times. As much as I love Gulfstream, I'm ready to stop watching 8,000 and 12,500 claiming. I didn't. If I wanted Arlington, I would have flown back home and rebuilt the racetrack. I want to see some nicer racing, so I'm excited for that, and I'm excited for the new Betting and Boozing cover for the rest of the show's history to just be me, you, and Irad with me and Mr. C in the winner's circle. That's going to be the new cover photo. So I'm very excited for that moment as well. I'm going to try to speak that into existence. And then lastly, as Kyle touched on, we really did cover an underrated card at Santa Anita. A lot of young, interesting horses in there and some solid stakes race company. Even though it was just the two of us, we did a really solid job. And on the bright side, if you're looking for one where it was a little bit of a shorter episode because we didn't have as much rambling, we did a good job keeping it well time-wise. So be sure to look at that if you want to bet Friday before this great Gulfstream card on Saturday.
Yeah, check out the Betting and Boozing. What is that, 54, Kyle, I believe?
Yep, it is 54.
Episode 54, Kyle and Charlie chopped up tomorrow, Friday's late pick 5 at San Diego, 2 stakes. Check that out. Guys, here's my final thought, and then we'll wrap up the show. Thanks to everyone. This is our last show of 2023. It's been unbelievable ride. I mean, I can't believe how many great moments Paul, Kyle, and Charlie, this podcast has had on air, off air in 2023. And as that theme from Frank Sinatra's song, The Best is Yet to Come in 2024. So thank you, all of you out there, for watching and listening to the HHH Racing Podcast in 2023. The very happiest of New Year's to everyone. Be safe, have a lot of fun, and we will see you next week, 2024, with new shows, new names, whole bunch of stuff going on. For my co-hosts, Kyle Roscoe, Paul Halloran, and Charlie Freeman, and our guest, Brian Nadeau, this has been host Howard Kravis, episode 321 of the HHH Racing Podcast. Crush your bets on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
If you have not followed his Triple H Horse Racing Podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.